was obviously listed as questionable yesterday. How did she feel through shoot around, and do you have an update on her status for tonight?
Yeah, she just did some of the shooting. She's going to be out tonight. Again with the back-to-back. And Caitlin are back-to-back. Caitlin's going to be active tonight. AB's not, and then
and watch that body language carefully. Stephanie White just announced before the game that Caitlin Clark would be on a minutes restriction while Aaliyah Boston sits out completely. Then she says they'll flip-flop tomorrow. Sounds reasonable, right? Managing a back-to-back with injury concerns. But what happened during that actual game reveals something far more troubling than simple load management, because the pattern of substitutions that night looked less like coaching strategy and more like deliberate sabotage.
Kelsey Mitchell want to act like she want a pity party. Hell, to be honest with you, you're part of the reason they lost. Ball hogging. Could nobody else get in rhythm but you? Ridiculous.
You allowed on offense, your defense is awesome. I see you out there switching, so tell me a little bit about your defense.
Thank you. That's definitely something I feel like I can hang my hat on. I think a lot of that comes down to just effort, comes down to trying to almost guess what they're going to do on offense and take away what they're best at. But it's a testament to our coaches in getting us prepared, and we watch a lot of film on the other team. But defense ultimately is a 5-person job. So we do a really great job, I think, at times of switching, helping each other, playing on a string. And that's only going to get better as the season progresses. But I feel like tonight, obviously, letting the other team score 106 points.
Now listen to Caitlin's response after the game. She's talking about defense, about effort, about switching and helping each other. Professional answers composed. But notice what she's not saying. She's not defending the minutes restriction. She's not explaining why she only played in short spurts. 3 minutes here, 2 minutes there. And when she mentions letting the other team score 106 points, there's something in her tone, because it's hard to establish defensive rhythm when you can't stay on the floor long enough to get into any rhythm at all. The Fever lost this game badly. Los Angeles put up 60 points in the paint. They had 27 fast break points. And Caitlin Clark, the player who's been carrying this franchise all season, the reason attendance doubled and ratings tripled, couldn't get going. Her worst performance of the year, according to multiple analysts. But was it really her performance that failed, or was it the coaching decision that set her up to fail?
I'm sorry, the second part is for Chelsea. Okay, being the engine that makes this whole thing go, please tell us about your tenacity. It's like your motor never stops.
It's about showing up. It's my job. I'm going to do my job every day. I think that this game can't be taken for granted. You got to respect it. You got to pour in whatever you got into it. And give that every time. I don't think there's an excuse that you can give to do this job, and I think that I do my damnedest to make sure that I show up. If I can lace them up and I can do what I need to do, then I'm going to do it.
Thank you.
Hi, ladies.
Here's Chelsea Gray from the Sparks side talking about showing up and doing your job every day, about respecting the game and pouring everything into it, no excuses. And the contrast is striking, because that's exactly what Caitlin Clark has been doing all season, showing up, carrying the load, playing through contact that would sideline other players. But on this night, she wasn't allowed to do her job. She was pulled repeatedly just as she started finding any offensive flow. Think about what a minutes restriction actually means for a rhythm player like Caitlin. She's not a catch-and-shoot specialist who can come off the bench cold and knock down threes. Her game is built on reading defenses, creating advantages in transition, getting defenders on her hip and making plays for teammates. That takes time. It requires sustained minutes to see how defenses are adjusting, to feel out the referees, to build chemistry with whoever's on the floor with her. 3-minute spurts destroy all of that.
That Sparks was a dangerous team. What do you guys see that made them so dangerous, especially with them playing without Kelsey and without Cameron?
I thought they did a great job getting the ball out of the net, getting the ball on offense and just pushing. They had a lot of transition points. I don't know what it says on here. 27 fast break points. I think they did a really great job of that, pushing the pace. We had a lot of turnovers that led to possessions that we couldn't get back in defense on. So testament to them and just their aggressiveness on the offensive side.
Kelsey, to that end, it seemed like this game was just disjointed a little bit for you guys. Was it sometimes the turnovers, or sometimes even you didn't turn it over, but you just couldn't get into the offense you guys wanted? Do you feel like there was a sort of a little bit of a disjointedness?
Listen to how Caitlin describes what made the Sparks dangerous. 27 fast break points, transition offense, getting the ball out of the net quickly and pushing. She's giving a tactical breakdown, showing she understood exactly what was happening. But here's what she's still not mentioning. How can you stop transition offense when you're sitting on the bench watching it happen? The Fever had 22 turnovers this game. 22 possessions where they gave the ball away and couldn't get back on defense. Some of those turnovers happened because the offensive flow was completely disjointed. Players who don't normally play together were forced into rotations together. Timing was off. Chemistry was non-existent. And every time Caitlin started to stabilize things, she'd get pulled. Kelsey Mitchell talked about how flow gets disjointed when you don't defend. And she's right. But there's another truth hiding in that statement. Flow also gets disjointed when your best playmaker can't stay on the floor long enough to establish any flow in the first place. The Sparks didn't just beat the Fever that night. They beat a deliberately handicapped version of the Fever.
Don't defend. I think that anything that you want to do on the offensive end, you can't do when you don't defend the ball. If you're getting the ball at the net every possession, you're going to be discombobulated. I think for us, we kind of shot ourselves in the foot because we couldn't find a decent flow offensively, but I think that's a testament to how bad our defense was. I think that we had some good moments. I think that we had some moments that made it seem like we were getting back into the game, but you got to turn them into moments every single possession after a while, and we shot ourselves in the foot because then we started looking for possessions to save us, and it was kind of too late. So I think defensively, you got to kind of be yourself. You got to kind of want to pour in and be what you're supposed to be, and letting the offense kind of take it from there. But I think defensively.
I've now listened to Kelsey Mitchell's full answer here. She's frustrated. You can hear it. She keeps coming back to defense, saying they couldn't get set up. They were discombobulated. They shot themselves in the foot. And then she says something revealing, we start looking for possessions to save us. And it was kind of too late. Who do you think they were looking to for those possessions to save them? Who's the player on that roster capable of taking over a game when everything's falling apart? It's Caitlin Clark, but she wasn't available to save anything because she was on the bench during crucial stretches. Kelsey's frustration isn't just about the loss. It's about knowing they had the firepower to compete but weren't allowed to use it properly. The Sparks' strategy was clear: push the pace, attack in transition, and exploit the Fever's lack of rim protection without Aaliyah Boston. It's a sound game plan, but the Fever's counter should have been to control tempo with their point guard, to slow things down and run deliberate half-court sets, where Caitlin could pick apart the defense. Instead, Stephanie White's rotation pattern ensured they could never establish that control.
Defense, just what was breaking down there defensively, especially in the front court with them scoring 60 in the paint?
Yeah, I mean, not having AB tonight definitely hurts us, I think. She's a presence on the defensive side for sure. But like Kelsey talked about, I think we couldn't get set up on defense with the turnovers that we had. It just kind of ruined our momentum when we turn it over and they get leak out layups. But I think like we let them do what they want to do. They're all their starters with over 10 points. That's something that we can't let happen. Yeah, I just didn't feel like we.
Here's where it gets even more damning. Caitlin's asked directly about the 60 points in the paint and the defensive breakdowns. She mentions not having Aaliyah Boston, acknowledges it hurt them defensively. Fair point. Boston is their rim protector, their defensive anchor. But then Caitlin says something crucial. We couldn't get set up on defense with the turnovers that we had. It just kind of ruined our momentum. Momentum, that word matters. Because momentum in basketball isn't just about scoring runs. It's about rhythm, about 5 players moving together, about knowing where your teammates will be before they get there. And you cannot build that momentum in 3-minute intervals. You especially can't build it when the rotation pattern is unpredictable, when you don't know if you're playing the next possession or sitting the next 5 minutes. Caitlin mentions they let the Sparks starters all score over 10 points. That's just a defensive failure. That's what happens when you can't establish any defensive identity because your personnel keeps changing. The Sparks could attack whoever was on the floor at any given moment because they knew the Fever's rotations were chaotic.
And they were more one-on-one this time. Did that catch you guys by surprise at all?
No, that's kind of who they always been identified as. I don't think that they've always had downhill players, and it's just something that we just weren't as mindful of that as we should have been. But I don't think them and who they were tonight was any different than what we've seen before. I just think that we didn't match their physicality. We were soft. We got punched in the mouth, and we kind of just kept getting punched tonight. And I don't think, hats off to their group for being really great, but I don't think it's something that we haven't seen before.
Hi, Coach. Charlotte Moore, L53CC.
And now Kelsey Mitchell delivers the most telling quote of the night. Asked if the Sparks surprised them with their strategy, she says no. That's kind of who they've always been identified as. This is something we've seen before. I don't think it's anything we haven't seen before. So the Sparks didn't do anything unexpected. The Fever knew exactly what was coming. They had a game plan. They understood the matchups. And they still got blown out by 20-plus points. Why? Because knowing what's coming doesn't matter if you're not allowed to execute your counter strategy. If your best player is sitting during crucial possessions, all the preparation in the world becomes irrelevant. Kelsey says they didn't match the physicality. They were soft. They got punched in the mouth. Strong words. But here's the question. How do you match physicality when your rotation is constantly disrupted? How do you establish toughness when you can't build any continuity? 5 players who've practiced together all week should be able to execute against a known opponent, but that requires those 5 players to actually play together for meaningful stretches.
Coming in, they allowed them to score as many points as they did tonight.
I don't think they did anything that we didn't expect them to do. I think we certainly understand how capable of a team they are. I felt like we just didn't match their energy, we didn't match their toughness, we didn't match their effort tonight.
Stephanie, I just wonder what you made of Caitlin's performance over 16 minutes and why maybe you didn't get the best out of her tonight.
Yeah, I mean, look, anytime you've missed, a couple weeks, it's going to take some time to get acclimated. I think it's going to take some time to build endurance. She hadn't really been able to practice all that much either. They pressured 94 feet, so again, you got to make sure that you're able to withstand some of that. It's never easy when you're reintegrating, after injury. So I thought she did some really good things. It's just a tough scenario when you're on a minutes restriction and you're trying to get back into rhythm throughout the course of the season. So she's going to continue to be better, and we're going to continue to be better, and as we get her back, working back in.
Yeah, the Sparks had 60 points in the paint tonight. Just what were the breakdowns in the front court, especially with AB out?
Yeah, I mean, that's a big one. Right, that's a big one because she's our anchor. She's our anchor, she's our communicator, she's our rim protector. She does a lot for us, and 27 fast break points, 22 points off of turnovers. I mean, that contributes because those are easy ones. We don't have a transition defense when you give it to them and they're able to score, turnovers for touchdowns, so to speak. I felt like some of our rotations weren't there. As good of activity level as we had a game ago, I don't think we had that here tonight. Again, it's big when you don't have an AB on the floor. Certainly, we didn't have Sophie early as she locked up early, before even warm up. So we didn't have her early as well. So I think more than anything, collectively, just the team defensive effort, making sure we're in our rotations, having each other's back. It wasn't there consistently.
Coach, you mentioned earlier also that they were going to flip-flop and Caitlin would play today and Aaliyah play tomorrow. Was that decision based on about the opponents that you're playing?
No, I mean, it was a conversation with the medical staff. And
now we hear from Stephanie White herself, and this is where the official narrative completely falls apart. She's asked what the Sparks did that was unexpected, and her answer is perfect. I don't think they did anything that we didn't expect them to do. She admits they understood how capable the Sparks were. Then she pivots to the excuse, we just didn't match their energy, we didn't match their toughness, we didn't match their effort tonight. But here's what makes that explanation so problematic. Stephanie White controls effort through her rotation decisions. If energy is the issue, you play your highest energy players. If toughness is the problem, you ride your toughest competitors. Caitlin Clark, whatever else you want to say about her, plays with relentless energy. She's proven all season that she'll battle through contact, chase loose balls, and compete on every possession. So why limit her minutes? Then the reporter asks about Aaliyah Boston missing 60 minutes and what they need to get the best out of that. White's response is textbook coach speak. Anytime you've missed a couple weeks, it's going to take some time to get acclimated. It's going to take some time to build endurance. Reasonable on the surface. But then she adds, they pressure at 94 feet, so you gotta make sure that you're able to withstand some of that. Wait, stop. Think about what she just said. The Sparks are pressuring full court, trying to speed up the game and create chaos. And Stephanie White's solution is to play her best ball handler in short spurts. Caitlin Clark is literally the player on that roster most equipped to break pressure. She's been doing it since high school. Iowa ran her against full court pressure for 4 years and she turned it into easy baskets. But White's rotation pattern ensured the Fever couldn't use that advantage. White continues, it's never easy when you're reintegrating after injury. But Caitlin wasn't coming back from injury. She was dealing with a back issue that required management. Sure, but she was active and available. The minutes restriction wasn't about protecting her from re-injury. It was about something else entirely. Then comes the question about the 60 points in the paint and the defensive breakdowns. White immediately points to Boston's absence. That's a big one because she's our anchor. She's our communicator. She's our rim protector. But then she mentions the 27 fast break points and 22 points off turnovers, and suddenly we're back to the same problem. Those transition points happened because the Fever couldn't control tempo. And they couldn't control tempo because their point guard was on the bench. White talks about rotations not being there, about activity levels not matching the previous game. She says it's big when you don't have an AB on the floor, certainly. But here's what she doesn't say. It's also big when you don't have your starting point guard on the floor for meaningful stretches. She mentions Sophie Cunningham getting locked up before warm-ups, losing another rotation player. But all of these explanations dance around the central issue. At the very end, a reporter asks about the minutes management decision itself. White's response, "It's a conversation with the medical staff and sort of where we were in terms of when the injuries flared up and working our way back. Medical staff, injury management, working our way back. All the right buzzwords, but none of it explains the specific rotation pattern that night. 3 minutes here, 2 minutes there, never enough time to establish rhythm, never enough continuity to execute the game plan. And here's the kicker mentioned at the start. White said before the game that Caitlin and Alia would flip-flop for the back-to-back. Caitlin plays tonight on restriction. Alia sits. Tomorrow they switch. So the obvious question becomes, the next night when Alia Boston played, was she subjected to the same choppy rotation? Was she pulled every 3 minutes just as she started getting going? Or did she get normal starter minutes with reasonable substitution patterns? Because if Boston got normal minutes and Clark got sabotaged, then the medical staff explanation doesn't hold up. It reveals the minutes restriction for what it really was. A coaching decision that had nothing to do with injury management, and everything to do with something far more troubling. Look at the broader context here. Caitlin Clark has been the story of the WNBA season. She's brought unprecedented attention to the league. Attendance is up everywhere she plays. Ratings have tripled for Fever games. She's selling out arenas and bringing new fans to the sport. And yet, since arriving in the WNBA, she's faced more physical play than any rookie in recent memory. Hard fouls that would draw flagrancy in any other context. Refs swallowing their whistles when she drives. Veterans taking shots at her in the media. Now add Stephanie White's rotation decisions to that list, because this wasn't an isolated incident. This was the most extreme example, but the pattern of questionable substitutions has been there all season. Pulling Caitlin during hot streaks, sitting her during crucial fourth-quarter stretches, rotations that seem designed to disrupt rather than optimize. Some will say this is just conspiracy thinking, that coaches make tough decisions and sometimes they don't work out, but coaching decisions should have logical explanations. If you're managing a player's minutes due to injury, you typically play them in longer stretches with more rest between. You don't yank them every few minutes. That's not load management. That's disruption. The Fever are paying Caitlin Clark to be their franchise player. They've built their entire marketing campaign around her. They've sold more tickets this season than in the previous 5 years combined. And in a crucial game against a division opponent, their head coach decided the best strategy was to ensure their star player never got comfortable, never found her rhythm, never had the chance to take over the game the way she's capable of doing. Caitlin's performance that night was her worst of the season. But it wasn't her fault. You can't judge a player's performance when they're not given a fair opportunity to perform. It's like asking a pitcher to throw an inning, sitting him for 30 minutes, bringing him back for another inning, and sitting him again. No athlete can produce under those conditions. What makes this even more frustrating is how Caitlin handled it publicly. She didn't throw her coach under the bus. She didn't complain about the rotation. She talked about defensive breakdowns and effort, and all the things a good teammate is supposed to say. Meanwhile, Kelsey Mitchell's comments revealed the real frustration in that locker room, the sense that they had the talent to win but weren't allowed to use it properly. The WNBA has a complicated relationship with Caitlin Clark. On one hand, she's been incredible for business. On the other hand, she's disrupted the established hierarchy. She's a rookie who immediately became the biggest star in the league, and that's made some people uncomfortable. Veterans who've been grinding for years suddenly find themselves playing second fiddle to a 22-year-old. Media narratives that used to focus on other players now revolve around her. But here's the thing, that's not Caitlin's fault. She didn't ask for the attention. She just plays basketball at an elite level and people want to watch. The league should be embracing that, building around it, figuring out how to lift all boats with the rising tide she's creating. Instead, we're seeing what looks like active resistance. Coaches making decisions that seem designed to humble her rather than showcase her. Officials allowing physical play that would never be tolerated against other stars. Media members writing think pieces about how she needs to earn her place in a league that should be grateful she chose the WNBA over overseas options. Stephanie White's minutes restriction that night wasn't just bad coaching. It was symbolic of a larger problem. The WNBA has spent decades begging for mainstream attention, for casual fans to care, for media coverage beyond the hardcore basketball audience. Now they finally have it, delivered by a player who can do things on a basketball court that make people stop scrolling and watch. And the response from some corners has been to try to diminish her, to make her prove herself in ways that no other generational talent has ever been asked to prove themselves. Imagine if the NBA had handled LeBron James this way as a rookie. If his coach had played him 3 minutes at a time and said it was for his own good. If officials had let defenders maul him without consequences. If media members had written articles about how he needed to respect the veterans and wait his turn, it would have been absurd then, and it's absurd now. The Fever lost that game by a significant margin. They'll lose more games if this pattern continues, Because you cannot win in professional basketball when you're deliberately limiting your best player for reasons that have nothing to do with winning basketball games. And that's what makes this so troubling. If Stephanie White truly believed that minutes restriction was necessary for Caitlin's health, fine, but the specific pattern of substitutions tells a different story.